Hey guys, and welcome to another Warframe video. In this video, which I may or may not regret, depending on how well I can show off this working, I will be showing off some Warframes I have inserted mind control in and basically describe why I put them in, and hopefully convince you to try it for yourself. Keep in mind that before I even start that mind control isn't as useless as people will say, though I will fully admit it isn't overpowered in any way, and is partially for a bit of fun and also excels at easing tensions in solo play. For example, you can mind control a shield osprey of any kind which will follow you and give you shield boosts, ancient healers will give you heavy damage reduction and status immunity, or, as some people might not even know, toxic ancients to add some free toxic damage to your weapons. Either way, let's start with the frame that I think mind control is good on, but the least bit good out of all of them, which is Wisp. Replacing Will-O-Wisp, as I never need to go invincible for a few seconds and the mind control target gathers about the same aggro as the clone, it's useful on Wisp, though she cannot buff it with her motes, which is why I put her on the lowest on my list. She can still, however, use Breach Surge to stun enemies around her, and the mind control target will allow hands-free spreading of radiation procs as it goes around dealing damage. Again, not the most useful use of mind control, but still good in a way to get enemies off of you for longer. Second least useful, but useful, would be actually Nova. Now I know what you're thinking, Nova is my favorite, so why would I put her second on the list? Well, if you don't know, you can make Nova a tank by modding her for maximum duration and minimum range, allowing her null stars to reduce damage to her health by 90%. While, incidentally, this also means that Wormhole is pretty much useless without the augment, and it means her mind control target will last the maximum possible duration. Even better, after adding a bunch of damage to the target, they will deal double that to enemies affected by her fourth ability, as Molecular Prime doubles the damage those enemies receive. This means it's somewhat more useful than putting it on Wisp, and since I use Nova a lot anyways, it's a great way to use her more in solo missions personally. Next, we have Frost. Now this is probably a surprise, but I'm sure I can convince you it's at least a little bit more useful than putting it on Nova. First off, we are replacing Ice Wave as it's an okay damage ability, and the augment is alright, but it's the least useful ability of his kit in my opinion, and we are also building off with Freeze Force to give our mind control target a heavy boost in cold damage, which will not only damage enemies, but slow them a bit if they manage to get some procs off. Even better though, his Avalanche ability removes some of the enemy's armor while they're frozen, allowing your mind control target to deal even more damage to these enemies, making mind control on Frost lean more onto the damage side of things as well as crowd control. It only gets better from there, as when putting it on Vauban and replacing his Photon Strike ability, we know that we can fully strip armor with his Bastille, which will allow the mind control target to really melt said enemies once their armor is gone. This allows for even more damage with mind control than Frost, and generally just adds to the solo play experience even more. Next we have Meg, and this one is short and simple. I have to replace the crowd control of Pull, though between being able to remove enemy armor with her Fracturing Crush and grouping enemies together with Magnetize, it lets the mind control target go to town and quickly ramp up the damage in Magnetize, creating a high damage hazard that enemies are drawn to. Moving up to the second best, but not least, is Banshee, a frame I rarely play ever at all these days, but one that benefits from mind control in several ways. I have to replace Silence, and while the stun is nice, unless I'm using her for stealth, I will never actually need it, so mind control goes into that slot while I also use her Sonic Fracture augment to completely remove enemy armor, just like Vauban, though it is instant, but also short-lived, which lets my mind control target melt them. In addition, they are able to hit the pings from sonar to amplify damage even more, and a heavy gunner is capable of one-shotting another with a single bullet if this occurs, regardless of level. Since Banshee is still paper thin in survivability, this helps her too in drawing enemy fire away from herself, making her slightly better at surviving. And now for my number one suggestion for mind control, and this may be a slightly controversial one, Sarin. Now this is a tough one because in order to fit mind control, we had to replace her Toxic Lash, which is a pretty useful ability, especially for popping spores, although hopefully I can convince you it's worth doing. First off, we have her Venom Dose augment to give bonus damage to the target similar to the Frost build, though this time with corrosive damage. Sarin was nerfed really hard by corrosive having an armor removal cap, and her fourth ability only applying a single viral proc for its entire duration, but she is still worth using, and naturally a mind control target with a boost in base damage and corrosive damage on top of this lets them deal damage to enemies very quickly, sometimes even faster than full armor removal frames as we have gone through, as well as the fact that they will sometimes pop the spores for you and let them spread even more. So yeah, that's mind control for 7 frames I think is most viable on. Perhaps I changed your mind about mind control, or perhaps I just confirmed your opinion that it's still useless, but either way, thanks for watching.